In Catalonia, opinion remains balanced between those in favour and against independence. The sentiment has been enraged by the jailing of prominent independence supporters, and street protests continue. But is the battle for Catalonia going to move from on the streets to online? And is the Spanish government planning a clampdown on the Catalonian social media? Find out the details on the Alex Salmond Show, on air and online.
Welcome to the Alex Salmond Show, where we continue our series on Wither Catalonia. In the aftermath of the Spanish elections, is the battle for the future going to move from on the streets to online? Alex reports from Barcelona, where he's been interviewing government ministers and international observers on the future of the rebellious province. But first, to your tweets and emails on recent shows. In last week's show, our panel of political pundits roamed far and wide, assessing the prospects of all the parties competing for seats in the UK general election. Speaking about our pundit show, Maureen says, another excellent show, Alex, always informative and relevant. Dougie says, the only sensible thing that's worth viewing. Well, thank you, Dougie. Kath says, the pundits don't always get it right, but they're willing to admit it. Yes, they are. I always enjoy listening to Ruth Wishart. She is so refreshing. Well done, Alex and Tasmina, for a great wee programme. Arthur says, aye, a grown-up civilised discussion among thoughtful political observers. Fabulous show. And Highlander says, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The punditry element I thought very good. Now, when an ardent Tory says the Tory lies need to stop, then you know Boris is in trouble. Then, speaking about our first programme in the series on Catalonia, Caroline says, the dignity and courage of Laura and Chell, and most incredibly, the lack of bitterness were so moving. I hope international pressure, so far milquetoast, can be brought to bear on Spain, and that all 9 are released so the families are reunited. Thank you, Caroline. Now, we've asked the new Spanish government for a response to our first programme on Catalonia, featuring the spouses of 2 of the independence campaigners sentenced to long terms of imprisonment, but are yet to receive a response. When they reply, we will cover their comment or their interview. However, Reuters reported last month that Spain's socialist leader Pedro Sanchez was stepping up efforts to control separatist groups and parties' activities on the internet, saying that his government would not allow Catalonia to set up a virtual independent republic online. The characteristic of demonstrations in Catalonia, and indeed elsewhere, has been the ability to mobilise large numbers of people into street demonstrations at very short notice, using online communications. Online, the Catalan independence movement may have reigned supreme. However, this may be about to change, with the Catalonian Minister of Digital Policies and Public Administration, Jordi Puignero, claiming that the Madrid government are intent on assuming extrajudicial powers to clamp down on social media traffic. Over to Alex, who's speaking with him in Barcelona.
Minister Jordi Puignero, welcome to the Alex Salmond Show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, Minister, your responsibilities in government encompass the digital economy as well as the Catalan civil service. Tell me a bit about how you're positioning Catalonia as a digital hub in Europe and the world.
Well, Catalonia has been over the past the fabric of Spain. It's the most industrialized area in the Spanish state. We were the only part of Spain that we did the Industrial Revolution, like in England and other parts of the world. And now we want to be the digital hub of not Spain, but of at least the south of Europe.
And what successes can you point to? Is there a killer statistic you can give us, which will say how Catalonia is successful in becoming this digital hub?
Well, it will be, I think, not very objective if I said it myself, so I will use other figures. According to Financial Times, Right now, we are in the south of Europe, the most attractive region to invest in this new digital economy. We host in Barcelona, the capital of Catalonia, the most important technological event right now in the world, which is the Mobile World Congress. We also host the Smart City World Congress, which is how we use these technologies in order to have better cities, more efficient cities, cities which use technology to provide better services to its citizens. Having these two events, creating a brand, it's also another policy which makes us strong in order to be able to attract companies, in order to attract talent to Catalonia.
But all of this drive to become a digital hub, to become the focus of activity in southern Europe takes place against the background of huge constitutional controversy, of tumult here in Catalonia. Doesn't that political uncertainty, doesn't it inhibit your economic plans? What are the impacts that you can see in the economy of this great political controversy?
Well, I think we see uncertainty around the world. We've seen Brexit in the UK. We've seen in Paris all these demonstrations of the yellow shirts in the streets. I think that that's not the problem. The problem is whether we are civilized or not a civilized society. And I think that in Catalonia we've shown the world that we have our own, obviously, controversies with the Spanish authorities, but we are trying to solve these controversies democratically, in a civic way, in a pacific way. The people from the business world understands that. We've seen how we are positioned as the second most digital city, that is Barcelona, in Europe after London, according to Nesta, which is a European index. Tourism has been growing, which is also something which people, when they see riots all over the world, they take decisions according as well on what they see on the TV.
But recently there have been indications that the Spanish state are planning a clampdown on the social media, virtually intercepting everybody's messages. How concerned are you as digital minister that such a draconian clampdown might be introduced?
Well, I have to say I'm very concerned, but not for the Catalan citizens, but for the whole Spanish citizens. This is a practice which is more similar to Turkey.
Or to China?
Yeah, or to China, than to what it should be a European standard. I haven't seen this in any European country. So we are really concerned that the Spanish authorities, for trying to stop a democratic movement which is just using the social media as a tool as everyone else.
But will the European regulations, the competition regulations, the freedom of expression aspects perhaps in Strasbourg Court, would they override a Spanish attempt, or can the Spanish state cite security reasons as an exception to normal standards?
Actually, what the Spanish state wants to do is that they say that according to not only national security reasons, but according to public order reasons, or to even for economic interest, they will be able to shut down the internet in any part of Spain without a judicial order, just because the government will say so.
And is this technically possible? With your background, you're better placed than most politicians to know. Technically, could you black out Catalonia from the digital expression?
Well, we will see whether they do it. We have seen how are they doing it in Turkey and other parts of the world. We think that this is something which should not be accepted by European laws. Actually, we want to appeal against this decree that the Spanish government has announced regarding two very important issues. One is the freedom of internet, so that you can freedom of access to internet, which is something you cannot just cut down as you want. It should be regulated and well regulated, and it should be respectful with the other principle, which is the freedom of speech.
How do you see the Catalan crisis coming to a resolution? I mean, most observers can't believe that it can continue indefinitely in a process of stalemate with a majority opinion for independence in Catalonia and a majority opinion in the rest of Spain against Catalan ambitions. How can you see a resolution of the crisis? And can there be any resolution without the freedom of the imprisoned independent supporters whose symbol you carry in your lapel?
Yeah, my previous minister is in jail, just for promoting and making it possible so that the people of Catalonia could vote in a referendum. Well, we think that this is a process which has been for almost 10 years right now. So the demand of the Catalan people at the beginning for more autonomy, it was not an independence process at the beginning. It was just the demand of fiscal authority for definitely have more autonomy inside Spain, was actually pulled down by the Spanish government with its constitutional court saying no to a new state of Catalonia, which had been voted by the Catalan parliament. It had been voted by the Spanish parliament, where the Spanish sovereignty resides of the whole Spaniards, and it was approved by referendum in Catalonia. That law, that new Catalan constitution, which was not an independent constitution, was ruled out by the Spanish Constitutional Court. That after that, people started voting pro-independence parties. And now we have a majority in the Catalan parliament for independence. And we've had a majority for some years. And I think that will continue to do so, and it will continue to grow if the Spanish government continues on its way of not wanting to sit down and negotiate, not wanting to sit down and having a dialogue with the Catalan authorities.
But you've won elections, the coalition of parties, not just your own, but the coalition of parties who support independence. You win the Spanish elections in Catalonia. You've had a referendum.
We've won all the elections for many years.
And you still are no nearer independence. So what can be the resolution to the Catalan controversy?
We believe that the only solution, this has to be a political solution based on dialogue. And that means that institutionally, Spain is having for the last 4 or 5 years a lot of instability, economically and institutionally. They've had 4 elections, they have approved only 1 budget in the last 4 years. If they don't think that without solving the Catalan problem they won't have stability, is that not understanding how important is Catalonia in the way for Spain to understanding what the future of Spain has to be. Negotiating a solution. Maybe you can negotiate a solution for the next 10, 15 years. The only way to solve that is through dialogue, through negotiation.
Well, Jordi, I can't bring everybody to the negotiation table, but what I can do is present you with the Alex Salmond Quake for appearing on the show. And now, you know, the drill from Scotland, it's whiskey, only Scottish whiskey, only Scotch, in the Quake, and then you pass it around everybody who attends the negotiations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Minister, thank you so much.
Join us after the break, where Alex speaks with international commentator Liz Castro. Welcome back. The Catalan independence struggle has had huge currency in the social media worldwide. One of the reasons for the informed reaction has been the rapid translations into English and the informed comment of a remarkable American Liz Castro, who in her time in Catalonia has embraced the independence movement. Alex caught up with Liz in Barcelona.
Now, Liz Castro, you're an American in Barcelona. Tell me, what brought somebody across the Atlantic a number of years ago to experience Catalan life?
You know, the first day that I walked into this office where I was looking for a job, they found out that I spoke a tiny bit of Catalan, not very well, and they never spoke to me in Spanish again. And it was a wonder. They were so appreciative, so welcoming, and that speaking Catalan opened many doors for me. People wanted to take me to their homes for parties, to talk to me, they took me on vacation. They treated me as one more person in the family, and I felt like my effort at speaking Catalan in the 1980s as an American was one of the pieces that made that happen. That was a special thing. There weren't very many people who did that. And that was surprising because in the United States, you know, when you go to the United States, you have to speak English. Everybody does. And nobody thinks, oh, that's so wonderful, you speak English. You just take it for granted. And here, that's not the case.
So let's give you a fairly unique insight, or certainly a rare insight, because you're an American coming to Catalonia, but you're learning to speak the language. So it gives you a very good vantage point to assess that eternal question, is Catalonia a nation? And what are the characteristics of the nation of Catalonia?
Well, that's a really interesting question, and it's something that I noticed right from the beginning. I had traveled a fair bit in Spain. I had been to Madrid, I had been to Galicia, I had been to Andalusia, and other places. And there were a number of things that were different here. There's a feeling about it. There's a feeling of identity, is the interconnectedness of people.
You must have made a big impact on you, Liz, because you went back to America, pursued this highly successful career in web design and books about computers and online and the democratization of the web, and then returned to Catalonia in 2011. So it's quite interesting, you as an outsider, albeit someone with huge knowledge of Catalonia. Are there many people of different nationalities? I think you got the most votes of any candidate when you stood for the National Assembly. Is that normal? Are there lots of these people from other countries part of this grassroots national movement?
Somebody like me, who's an American, I've lived practically all my life in the United States, except for 10 or 15 years here, can also be Catalan and be considered for, you know, the national board of the Catalan National Assembly, which is it's a lobby. It's not a political. It's not an elected office. It's a volunteer group.
It is elected because you got.
It was elected.
On.
That's true. But I mean, it's not. You know, it's not an elected as in
of government.
Yes, it's not a governmental body.
And in terms of your own contribution to the National Assembly, this grassroots movement. Clearly, your expertise in online matters, has that been a big influence in this burgeoning growth of the Catalan independence movement? The fact that so much more is possible in terms of contact with the democratization that comes with the online process. Has that been central to
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for Twitter and Facebook and particularly WhatsApp lately, and Telegram and Signal and whatever else, you know, is coming now.
But you've also been a very articulate voice for the Catalan independence movement in the media worldwide. Again, you have an advantage because you know, as a native English speaker, you're able to translate from the Catalan and give a view. Is the fact that you're in America, is that also helpful in terms of being able, despite your immersion in the Catalan movement, it still gives a certain degree of distance?
Maybe. You know, I think there's good things about it and bad things about it. I mean, the fact is I'm not Catalan, I'm not from here. And so sometimes it feels like it's not my place. On the other hand, I speak Catalan very well, and Spanish, and I've lived here for a very long time, and so I've seen all the things, not all of them, but many of the things that make up this process, and it's complicated. You know, I've met practically all of the people who, not practically, I've met all of the people who are in jail right now. I know them personally. And I have other American friends who say, you know, I've never met the President of the United States, but I've met all of the Catalan presidents. How is that? Is it that Catalan society is more accessible? Is it because we're American somehow, you know, that makes us, you know, special? I'm not exactly sure. What I do know is that this community aspect of Catalonia, the importance that people put on talking and on debating and on deciding what they want to do and on listening to people, that's very special. And that's something that should be celebrated and taken advantage of.
The prisoners, a personal tragedy for the 9 people involved, of course.
Yeah.
But history would teach us a great rallying call for the Catalan national movement. There are very seldom in history where substantial sentences of politicians works to the benefit of those who are imposing the sentences. The general rule is that it works to the benefit of those who incarcerated. What's your impression, Phil? Where do you think this is going to take the Catalan national movement?
Well, there's many things about it. Like you say, it's a tragedy. When I think about those people in jail, they're just regular people. You know, they're politicians who had a mandate to have a referendum. And the fact that they've been jailed for sedition, violent overthrow of the government, it's just ridiculous, and it really proves...
Well, of course, the violence wasn't established in the charges, which
No.
I suppose is quite interesting, because if you look across most democracies, then sedition is something that has to nowadays be associated with violence. Very, very few countries, apart from Spain, have sedition as an offence in itself. And
Well,
certainly not America, where obviously freedom of speech would be preeminent over all things.
Absolutely. They say that one of the reasons that they originally accused them of rebellion is so that they could keep them in jail, because with just charging them with sedition, they couldn't. And so the rebellion charges, which involve, according to the Spanish Penal Code, you know, violence, real violence with weapons, and it's stipulated in the statutes, could be used to keep them in jail until they were convicted. The statute describes sedition as any kind of resistance using force or pressure against the government. That kind of definition, we're all seditious, all of us. I certainly am, because I resist with pressure things that my government does all of the time. There are plenty of things that I disagree with. So if people are in jail for 9 years for that, that means that there's no democracy in Spain, because Spain will simply apply that definition of sedition to anybody that it doesn't like. And that's a shame, and that's a travesty.
But that is not the point. I mean, you have this contrast between popular opinion, democratic opinion, political opinion in general, outraged by the apparent draconian nature of these sentences, and questioning as to whether merely speaking out against a state or a government can possibly be considered a crime in a democracy. Well, that's on the one hand, but on the other hand, the governments of Europe, the institutions of the European Union, have been pretty cool towards Catalonia.
Yeah, and it kind of gives you an idea about if they're just cool about democracy, because they've certainly been up in arms about Hong Kong, about the democratic supporters there. They complain a lot about democracy in Venezuela, in any other place besides Catalonia. Why? Because Spain has a lot of influence within the European Union, and they don't want to be on Spain's bad side.
But if Catalonian democracy is inconvenient, what does that tell you about the prospects for success? I mean, can popular support translate into success against institutional opposition?
Well, there's a thing about people in general, I think all around the world, and it's that they're not really willing to live without freedom. We're sort of waiting to see what was going to happen with this trial. You know, were the judges really going to be honest and impartial? And when they handed down 10-year sentences for demonstrating and for holding a referendum, we realized that there was no justice in the Spanish court for Catalonia. But after these sentences, it becomes so much more basic. We want independence because we want to live in a democracy. We want to be able to have freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of political, manifestation. And that is not allowed today. Jordi Cuixart and Jordi Sanchez were civil leaders, have been in jail for the last 2 years and will be in jail for 7 years more because they participated in a nonviolent demonstration. I was there, I saw it. They did nothing except tell people to go home. And they are now jailed for sedition.
And would you say that that thirst for the right of speech, of freedom of assembly, or freedom to elect your own government or become independent, is that going to propel Catalonia to independence, or will it take a tea tax or something harsh on the economic front to move things in that direction? What's your opinion?
Well, that's a good question. What will it take to get Spain to sit down and talk, which is the demand of most people? And I don't know. You know, Spain is very, very stubborn about Catalonia. One, because it doesn't want to lose 20% of its GDP. And two, because of pride. There's definitely an emotional element involved. Spain cannot stand the idea that Catalans don't want to be part of Spain anymore. Really, it's hurtful. I understand that. It's a little bit like a divorce in that sense, but that's not reason to impel them to stay.
Will the non-violence ethos be held to in the circumstances we have now?
Sure, I think so, yeah. Anybody who took part in that October 1st referendum knows the strength of that strategy and the strength also of the Catalan people working together to make that happen. You know, that's what we will do again. We will join together to insist that we have a right to be heard. We have a right to speak, to choose our own future.
And that future for you, Liz, is it in Catalonia, back to America? What's the future for yourself?
Right now it's in Catalonia, absolutely. I live in the middle of Barcelona with my 3 children, and I love it here. You know, people call me Catalan, which I think is a great compliment. I feel very much at home here. I feel a part of this community. That's you know, a wonderful thing for anyone.
Perhaps a Lafayette of the Catalan Revolution?
That is quite a compliment. Thank you.
Well, to toast,
I do my part.
To toast the future, can I present you with the Alex Salmond Quake? The Quake's a loving cup in Scots Gaelic. Whiskey, only Scotch, none of that bourbon
No, I wouldn't dream of American
the Quake
whiskey.
and pass it round your Catalan friends.
Thank you very much. Wow, that's a treat. I love whiskey.
In the weeks following the Spanish election, there is still no sign of a breakthrough in the standoff between Catalonia and the Madrid government. With the Catalan independence parties gaining ground and the extreme right wing making political progress in the rest of Spain, Socialist Prime Minister Sanchez may feel that he has little room to manoeuvre in changing tack from his hard line towards both Catalan ambitions and with regard to the political prisoners. However, this week came the news that the largest independence party, the ERC, are suggesting that they might be open to supporting a Sanchez government in the Cortes if the Prime Minister is open to discussions on independence. We will watch developments with interest. Certainly, there seems to be few more attractive options to real dialogue. It is difficult to see how continuing use of the Spanish judicial system is going to quieten, rather further inflame, independence sentiment. And it is difficult to prosecute the feelings of a people with any hope of success. Meanwhile, the independence movement has its own strategic issues to grasp. Can the various independence parties continue to present a united front and avoid major splits on strategy? And above all, can the cause hold on to its prized international reputation as a non-violent movement in the face of heightened political atmosphere of 9 martyrs to the cause languishing in jail? In this regard, if indeed the Spanish authorities really have in mind a social media clampdown of the kind only previously deployed in Turkey and China, it seems unlikely to break the Catalan spirit. However, it would subject Spain to further international reputational damage. We'll report on any developments in next week's programme. Join us next time when Alex interviews some of the people rallying to the Catalan cause. We take the temperature on the streets as Catalonia debates its strategy for nationhood. But until then, from me, Alex and all at the show, it's goodbye for now, and we hope to see you all next week.